Hi everyone, it's Liz from Castle Handmade here. Today I'm just putting together a little video tutorial of how to make a crochet granny hexagon. Now, a lot of you already know how to make a granny square, but I thought this would be a bit of fun. You can make lots of these and put together a blanket or a cushion, or you could just have one on its own and use it as a coaster. It's just a fun little make and something nice and new for you to try. Now you'll have to bear with me today as I'm using a new phone, which means that my camera setup is a bit different to how I'm used to doing it. So I'm playing with lighting and sound and the setup and things. So hopefully it's nice and clear and you can hear me okay, and you can join along. So this is the granny hexagon that we'll be making. And you can use any yarn for this. Today I'm going to use some of the Morris & Sons Estate in the 8-ply. This is the yarn that I have in stock, and I've now got 30 different colours of this one. This colour that I'm using is called Posy. It's suggested that you use a 4mm hook for this. However, today I'm going to use a 5mm hook because I like the hexagon just to be a bit more to have a bit more space between the stitches, and then it's a bit more fluid when it becomes a crochet fabric for a blanket or something. But you can use anything, it's only a little practice today anyway. You'll also need a pair of scissors just to cut the end, and you'll need a embroidery needle so that you can weave in your ends at the end of making the hexagon. You might also find stitch markers to be handy today, and I'll show you where you can use these during the tutorial. So to get started, you're going to get your yarn and you can make a slip knot. Now just go ahead and do this however you find easiest, and pop your hook into the slip knot. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to chain 5. So there I have the chain of 5. I'm then going to join this chain together with a slip knot so that we can make our starting ring. So pop the hook through, grab the yarn and make a slip stitch. And then we have the foundation circle that we're going to work all of our stitches into. To begin, we're going to chain 3. Those 3 will pretend to be a double crochet. Then we're chaining 2, which become the first corner of our hexagon. Okay, starting with the first cluster that we're going to make. It's the same as when you're making a granny square. The clusters are 3 double crochet. So yarn over into the starting space and we're making 3 double crochet. So here's 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets, and there's the 3rd. So there we have the first cluster. I'm just fumbling with yarn behind here, so just excuse that. Okay, after we've done the first cluster, we need to do the chains for the next corner. So we're chaining 2 for a corner, and then we're going ahead to do the next cluster. So double crochet 3 times. There's 1 double crochet, 2 double crochet, and 3. It would help if I actually looked at what I'm crocheting and not at the screen. Okay, there we go. So that's the second cluster. Chaining 2 for the next corner and another cluster going in. So 3 double crochet. There's 1. 2, and 3. So we're up to the next corner, so chaining 2, and we're going to do 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so far we've got 4 full clusters, and we've got this little bit that becomes the end of our last one. So we've still got a little bit more to go. You might want to pull your clusters over a little so that you've still got enough space in here to put your finishing clusters. Okay, chain 2 for the corner and another cluster of 3 double crochets. That's 1, 2, 3, okay, we're up to our final cluster now, so we're chaining 2. This time our last cluster only needs 2 double crochet because of the first 3 starting chains. We're actually pretending that that one's the final double crochet of the cluster. So just go ahead and put 2 double crochet into that loop, and then we're going to do a slip knot, sorry, not a slip knot, a slip stitch, a slip stitch to join. So we count up the 3 chains, so we go up 1, 2, 3. We're going to do our slip stitch through the 3rd chain, and then we've finished off that final cluster. Before we begin the next round, we need to do a slip stitch into the corner space, and then we'll start the next round. So as you can see, it's already formed a hexagon shape. Okay, so let's go ahead and chain 3. That will become our final double crochet in the last cluster of this round. We're chaining 2 more, which will be our corner space. And now we're putting 3 double crochet into that same space. Because that's a corner, we need to have 2 clusters in that corner. So here we go, putting this cluster in here. So double crochet once, twice, and the 3rd one. Now this becomes our side, so we're going to chain 1 along our sides. We're in a corner, so 3 double crochets for a cluster. Oh, just bumped the camera. Okay, chain 2 because we're on a corner, and another cluster into that same corner space. So 3 double crochet. 1, whoops, 1, 2, 3. Okay, we're on the side, so it's chain 1, and now we're at another corner. So it's 3 double crochet for the cluster. 1, 2, 3, and 2 chains for the corner space, and another 3 double crochets in that same corner space. So it's just like your granny squares, where you need to put 2 clusters and 2 chains in every corner. The only difference is we're now working with 6 corners instead of 4. So your hexagon will have 6 corners, unlike your square that had the 4 corners. Working along the sides is the same as a granny square as well, in that we're just putting the 1 chain along our side clusters. Okay, we're up to another corner. So 3 double crochet into the corner space. Two chain and 3 double crochet into that same corner space. Chain 1 along the side, 3 double crochet into the next corner space. Chain 2, and then 3 double crochet into that same corner space again. Okay, chain 1 along the side, and then 3 double crochet into the next corner space. 1, oops. That happens every time I look at the screen instead of looking at what I'm doing. 2, 3, and then chain 2 because we're on a corner, and 3 double crochet into that same corner space again. Okay. Now we've got the final cluster to make, and that's the one that already has the 3 chain pretending to be a double crochet. So we need to chain 1 before we get to that. That's our side. We're going to do 2 double crochet into that starting corner space. There's 1, there's 2, and now we join up to the 3rd chain using a slip stitch, and that makes our final cluster of the round. Now you will notice that this is very wavy. That's just how the pattern is as you're making it, and it definitely needs blocking. As you can see in this one that's got an extra round, I have blocked this one overnight, so all I did was spray it with water and then I pinned it just to my ironing board, and that's how it's blocked out. Nice and flat and straight, and you can see the edges really well. Whereas this one that I've just been making now is very wavy and curling up and things. So don't worry if yours looks like this. That's exactly how mine looked before I blocked it. Okay, now moving on to the 3rd round. Now with this granny square, this granny hexagon pattern, you can work as many rounds on this one as you like. So it just depends how big you want to make it. And the pattern just repeats. So the corners are all the same and the side are the same as well. If you found yourself getting mixed up with granny squares about where the actual corners are, a good way to remember what parts are the corners and where you need to be putting 2 clusters and 2 chains is to use your stitch markers. So you can pop a stitch marker in on every corner, and then you'll be able to recognize them straight away when you come to do your next round into them. Now, if you don't have pretty stitch markers, you can just use bobby pins or safety pins. It's up to you. It's just a good way of marking the corners as you go around. Obviously, you'll need 6 to go around a hexagon, but I'll just put those 3 on just to show you how they can be quite useful. Okay, moving on to round 3. We've just done our slip stitch into the third chain, we now need to slip stitch into the corner space. That's just to anchor our stitches in the right spot to begin the next round. Starting again the same way we have for each round, we chain 3. That then becomes the double crochet of the final cluster. We chain 2 for the corner space, and we're doing 3 double crochet to make a cluster in this first corner. Now, going along the side this time, we need to do a single crochet, and then we do a cluster into this side space. So 3 double crochet into here. Now, like I said, if you want to continue this and make it larger and go to a 4th round, then all you're repeating is the corner spaces with clusters, 2 clusters and the 2 chain, and your side is just a single chain, 1 cluster, and then a single chain, 1 cluster until you get to your next corner. So for this corner, we're already up to our next corner, so it's a chain 1, and now we're in the corner, so we're doing 3 double crochet for the cluster. And look, we know that this is a corner space because we've got the stitch marker there. So we can take that out now. Oh, it's a bit tricky trying to use my left hand and do it in front of the camera as well. Okay, so where was I up to? I was up to the 2nd double crochet of this cluster. So I'm up to 3rd double crochet. Okay, so there's our cluster in the corner. We need to do 2 chain because it's a corner, and another cluster in that same spot. So 3 double crochets. 3. And we're back along a side again. So chain 1, 3 double crochet into the next space. Chain 1, and now we're at a corner space because of our stitch marker. So I'll take the stitch marker out. And we're at the corner, so it's cluster in here of 3 double crochet. Then chain 2 and another cluster in that same space. Okay, and chain 1 because we're along the side, cluster into that space. Chain 1, and we've reached another corner. So stitch marker out, and we're going to do 3 double crochets in the corner for 1 cluster. Now I've just realized that my lighting has changed a bit. It's a bit cloudy today and the sun keeps going in and out of clouds, so it's making it tricky in here to keep the lighting the same. Okay, I've done 1 cluster in the corner. I need to chain 2 and do another cluster. Now, what I also should have mentioned is that if you are using stitch markers to mark your corners, after you take your stitch marker out to do your corner clusters and chains, like we've just done here, the 3 double crochet, 2 chain, 3 double crochet for the corner, we should put the stitch marker back in to the new corner so that when we come back around on the next round, we've got the corner marked out. Now, this is probably only going to be a useful tip for you when you are working on bigger squares. So you probably won't really need to use it that much working on the 3 rounds. But if you were going bigger and bigger, you could actually make this into quite a nice granny hexagon blanket if you just kept going, a bit like the big granny square blankets that you can make with the continuous rounds. You could probably do the same for this. It would just make it a hexagon shape, obviously, rather than a square. Okay, we're on the side, so we chain 1, 3 double crochet into the next space, chain 1 again. Now I ran out of stitch markers, but this one is a corner, so it's 3 double crochet into the space, and we then chain 2, and we do another 3 double crochet into the same space because it is a corner. Okay, chain 1 along the side, 3 double crochet into the next space, chain 1, and we've made it to another corner. So 3 double crochet into the corner space, chain 2, 3 double crochet into the corner space, and we're back along the side again, and this time we're on the final side of this round. So it's chain 1, 3 double crochet into that space, and we chain 1 again, and now we're needing to finish off this final cluster. Now remember, we've got the chains in here that pretend to be a double crochet, so all we need to do is put 2 more double crochets into that corner space and join it up. So it's 2 double crochet into this corner space here, and we're joining it with a slip stitch into the 3rd chain. 1, 2, 3, so into there, slip stitch, and that's our final part for that round. Now it's even wavier now that we've moved on to the 3rd round, but like I said, once you do the blocking, you'll end up with a perfectly flat hexagon, and then that will be ready for you to join together to make a cushion or a blanket, or on their own you've just got yourself a little coaster. I hope that's made sense and that it's been nice and clear for you to see. It's always a bit hard to tell from this side of the camera, but any questions, just let me know and I'll try to answer them. I'll work on getting a better setup and working on the sound and things so that the next time it will be better than this one. But thanks for watching, and I hope everyone's taking care.